So today we start emerging from lockdown with a slight ease in restrictions. And this may be a time for you where you think, fantastic, and you can get out and do more. However, the ease in restrictions doesn't give us that much more freedom than perhaps we once had. Maybe, like many 50-year-old women, there is very little change for you, and so you face more time in that stay-at-home confinement. You may feel as though you're experiencing something called cabin fever, which is the feeling, the experience of frustration or depression even, that some people experience being confined indoors for long periods of time. And yes, that is a very real phenomenon, and psychologists have studied it for many decades, and it's also recognized by medical practitioners now as well. Particularly, it's observed in regular people when they are confined over winter. They can't get out as much because of the weather. If you would like to know 5 ways or 5 strategies to actually cope with the stay-at-home regime, but also how to emerge from pandemic lockdown in a way that positions you well to actually embrace the new normal, then please stay with me as I explain them to you through the course of this video. What can you do to alleviate cabin fever? Well, drawing on the psychology literature and the examples of some very famous and influential people who've been confined for much longer periods of time than we have during this lockdown, I'll share with you 5 strategies that you can implement that really work. Strategy number 1 is adopt a routine. So when you're on holiday, often the days merge into one another. And you may have found that during this period of lockdown, the days have merged into one another as well. The difference is that on holiday, that's a good thing because it means that you're relaxing and you're slowing down. Perhaps one of the advantages that you're appreciating about the stay at home is that you don't have to necessarily have the house as tidy as it needs to be because you're not expecting people to drop in, and there may be less pressure on you to wash, iron and dry good clothes for work and going out, because those opportunities are reduced. Now, if that's the case, you may need to get used to working from home, and email and phone make us much less visible, and we don't need to do that. I know for myself, when I was a consultant, I set up my consulting business in Queensland in the early 90s. I made it a practice to actually get dressed properly and get made up before I went to work. And that was in the very early days when we didn't really know a great deal of email. And for me, that meant power dressing. So if you're a woman in your 50s, you'll remember what power dressing was all about. And for me, the commute was a mere 15 meters from my kitchen to my office. But nevertheless, it helped me to have that routine, remain professional when I was actually working. So obviously you can see I'm much more relaxed today, as most of us are, but having a routine and being in our professional space, our professional head when we're actually working or when we're doing other things can really help us. And the routine in the morning is particularly important. It sets us up for the day. And that brings me to my second strategy. Start your day with gratitude. So if you start your day with gratitude and calmness, that will put you in a much, much better position than you can ever imagine to deal with the stresses of life. And particularly if you're in a forced situation where you're confined to your house, or you need to stay inside unless you're exercising. So beginning a day with gratitude means that you don't immediately pick up the phone, start scrolling through social media and allowing the emotions of the day and the pressures of whatever is going on in the world to crowd in on you. It means that you actually start your day in control, and that has to be a great thing, because it enables you to be calm and also to be happy and share your happiness with others. Now, as a woman over 50, I know that you will be caring for other people, whether they're parents, siblings, your co-workers, other extended family, neighbours, and people that you will be reaching out for or you feel a sense of responsibility to. So for you to be in control and in a state where you can give happiness from a full cup is tremendously important, and the key to it is starting your day. If you've never tried it, I would recommend starting the day with Hal Elrod's Miracle Morning. You can get the books online, but they have a process of working through an extra hour a day that will really set you up for life, for great fulfillment and purpose, regardless of your circumstance. And you may find that actually you now have an extra hour a day. Before the lockdown started, you may have actually filled that time with commuting or other chores, but now you have that time. So use it wisely. I highly recommend A Miracle Morning. So none of us know when, but at some point in the future, we will look back on this time of coronavirus, the pandemic, the lockdown. We'll look back on it, and we may be in a pub, we may be round a table with family and friends, and we will be saying, remember when? Now, if you put yourself in that situation in the future and you're looking back now, how do you want to remember this time? What will you say about it? Now, clearly your experiences, the extent to which you're affected directly by the virus, whether it be your loved ones or yourself that contracted it, you will have different memories to those people who have not experienced it directly. But nevertheless, you could reflect on deprivation. You could reflect on all the things that people are not allowed to do and how depressing it was. Or you could reflect on the time that it gave you to do new things or make some decisions about your life in a way that you really welcomed that opportunity to reflect. So how will you remember this time? That's an excellent question, and it's one that I recommend that you think about now. If you are like many people, and I know that there are a great many of you who've written to me, and I've seen your posts and your emails that are feeling the deprivation quite acutely, my recommendation to you is to shift your focus of control onto things that you can actually control. What can you control? You can control what's in your mind, you can control your feelings. For the most part, you can control your body and your actions and get some really good endorphins going in your body, and you can control your spirit or your connection to your higher self. Those are things that are within your control. Now, you may be a person who will be losing your job, you may have lost a business, your relationships may be in trouble because of all the stress and the overwhelm caused by the pandemic and the lockdown and all of the associated things with it. That may very well be true, but what can you control? So if it's your job and your finances, what can you work on? Can you work on your resume? Can you work on getting your finances in order? Focus on what you can control. Don't worry about the things that you can't, and you will then have a sense, you will have a sense, and you will genuinely have a resourcefulness to bring to bear on the challenges that you face and that you can overcome. So strategy number 4 is be open to change. Now, I was very interested to read a study this week that came out of the UK that looked at drinking during the pandemic and particularly during the lockdown. 18% of people have started to drink more. Now, you can understand why that might be the case, especially if you were a person who came home after work and you had a glass of wine. It's easy to do that during the day because the limits on your time are different, and also, you know, the weather's great, so why not sit outside, read a book, have a gin and tonic? I've seen so many people doing that on social media, so perhaps that applies to you too. And you can understand why that would be the case. There's a holiday feeling to it. But did you know that a whopping 35% have either slowed down their drinking or stopped altogether? Now, is that a good thing? Well, arguably, of course it's a good thing, and especially for us as women over 50, we know that we need to be careful, particularly of alcohol and breast cancer. There is a link there, so we want to be careful about it. But obviously for psychologists, there is a concern, because why do we drink normally? It's often a social activity. It's something we do with other people, and particularly with our girlfriends. It's enjoyable. And so one of the things that we know is the biggest predictor of a long and happy life is our social network. So as our social networks and our ties become weaker through this pandemic, it would be easier to actually slow down or stop drinking altogether. I also know of some people, some women, who've stopped altogether during COVID-19. They're doing a dry COVID. And I have one friend who's lost 9 kilos. Incredible, but true. So my number 5 that I would recommend as a strategy for you is to experience abundance no matter what. That's what this means here, NMW, no matter what. So is this possible? Yes. And we can look at examples of people like Nelson Mandela, who was in prison for 27 years, and he emerged as a better person through that confinement, and he employed some of those strategies that we've just talked about, particularly in terms of having a routine that helped him to overcome the oppression of being confined, and he was able to emerge a better leader. Another person who did something similar is Viktor Frankl, and he was a psychiatrist and author, and he was confined in the Nazi concentration camps. He lost his parents and his wife. Only his sister survived. And he developed, during that time, he developed something called logotherapy, which was pretty much a visualization technique. He was able to transport himself out of his hopeless, absolutely senseless existence by finding purpose and meaning in his life, by having a positive attitude around it, and then by living it. He visualized his purposeful life. You can do that too, so can I, and we can actually emerge as better people and have a more fulfilling, wonderful life in our 50s. So when we talk about experiencing abundance, abundance is a state of mind. There is abundance all around us, whether it be in the sunshine or whether it be in the rain, the apples that are in season at the moment, the grass, leaves, trees, everything. There is so much abundance that is completely free. So as these conditions of lockdown ease somewhat and we get fewer restrictions, if you're able, I would highly recommend that you get to spend some time in nature. I am a student of forest medicine, and I spend quite a bit of time, if I can, in the forest, allowing the smells, the sounds, the sights, what I can hear, the insects, the birds, really fill up my senses and allow me to have that inner peace, total calm. And I would highly recommend that you try it if you get the opportunity. And there is abundance in everything. It's completely a state of mind. So you can experience abundance no matter what. So if this is you, please do join with me in the conversation. Connect with me on Facebook or Twitter. I would love to hear from you, and please do subscribe to my channel, and I look forward to sharing more videos and more information with you.